Good morning, fourth graders. Today we're on page 241 of your student journal, page 241. And our objective today is today I will write a fraction in decimal form and place it on a number line. Okay, so let me scoot that up so you can see it. Today I will write a fraction in decimal form and place it on a number line. Okay, so let's look at our vocabulary. We have decompose a fraction. To break down into smaller parts. So they have 48 hundredths is the same as 4 tenths plus 8 hundredths. And the reason that's the same, friends, is because 4 tenths is the same as 40 hundredths. So 48 hundredths is the same as 40 hundredths plus 8 hundredths. And then 40 hundredths is the same as 4 tenths. So there's a lot going on there with equivalencies. Okay, then they remind us that we can have an equivalent fraction in decimal. So this is 48 hundredths and this is 48 hundredths. And then they show us what 48 hundredths looks like in a place value chart. So the 4 tenths goes there and then the 8 hundredths goes here. And convert means to change form without changing value. Okay, so our steps today I'm going to follow pretty closely. They say we're going to decompose the fraction. That means we're going to do this to it. Write the numerator on the place value chart. And the reason we write the numerator is that's the part that we say. Say the decimal and then represent the decimal on the number line. So as I'm working, boys and girls, you probably want to follow these steps and see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to get started right here. Here is my first one. Okay, so my first one says 8 hundredths. Okay, and step 1 says decompose the fraction. So I want to break up this fraction into tenths and hundredths. Now here's the problem with this one. Can I break this 8 up? Can I decompose it? I can't. Because I don't have any tenths. I have 0 tenths plus 8 hundredths. I don't have any tenths there. That's the problem. Whereas in 48, I could decompose it into 40 plus 8. But since this is a single digit, it's just in the ones place value, I can't really decompose that. That one makes that a little bit tricky, so I'm glad that I was able to show you that one. Okay, so this means I have 0 tenths plus 8 hundredths. Now, when I go to put this on the place value chart, then I'm going to have to record that. I'm going to have to say I have 0 tenths and I have 8 hundredths. Now, this 0 is very, very important. Because when I read this, this is 8 hundredths. Watch what happens when I read this. 8 hundredths. Because remember we say the last place value? What if I made a mistake? I want to show you on a different one. What if I had made a mistake and I had put it somewhere else? So I'm going to show you just using this place value chart. What if instead I had put the 8 right here? Would those have the same value? No, because look at how I say this. 8 hundredths, and how would I say this? 8 tenths. So that would have been a mistake. So having the 0 there is very, very important. Okay, next they want me to put this on a place value, on a number line. They want me to represent this decimal on a number line. I might want to first just say what are equal. So 8 hundredths is equal to 8 hundredths. Okay, well, what do I know about this place value chart? If I was to go by tenths, I know that this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. As fractions, I know this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, and 9/10. I want to show you something even different down here. I could also say this is 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 40 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 60 hundredths, 70 hundredths, 80 hundredths, and 90 hundredths. So those all have the same value. Now the reason I wanted to show you that is because look at what we have here. We have 8 hundredths and 1/10 is 10 hundredths. So where do I think this is going to go? Could it go to the 10th? I didn't have any tenths. I have less than a 10th. So 8 hundredths actually has to go about here. It's going to go about there. Because this is 1/10 or 10 hundredths. So 8 hundredths is less than a 10th. It's less than a 10th, or it's less than 10 hundredths. Okay, let's look at another one. Because they started with the most trickiest one, or the trickiest, not most trickiest, sorry. All right, let's jump into this one. This one says decompose the fraction, but they already decomposed it for us. They already said 2/10 and 1/100th. I might compose it back together so we can see what that looks like. 2/10 is the same as 20 hundredths. So that is 21 hundredths. And what is this? 21 hundredths is how I say that. So they're equivalent, 21 hundredths and 21 hundredths. Okay, where would this go on the place value chart? I'm sorry, on the number line. Well, remember how I said this is 1/10? Or I could say it's 10 hundredths. This is 2/10. This is 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, and 9/10. Okay, that's also the same as 20 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 40 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 60 hundredths, 70 hundredths, 80 hundredths, and 90 hundredths. They're the same. So just like if I wrote 2/10 is equal to 20 hundredths, in decimal form it's the same. 2/10 is equal to 20 hundredths. So decimal form and fraction form, they're both equivalent. So where would 21 hundredths go? Well, if this is 20 hundredths and that's 30 hundredths, isn't it going to be right about there? A little bit more than 20, but not to 30. Okay, let's try some of these together, friends. Okay. All right, we are on page 242. Page 242, and here's our first problem. Okay, it says 42 hundredths. Okay, and they first want us to decompose that. Well, what do we know about 42 hundredths? We know that is 40 hundredths plus 2 hundredths. So I just decomposed the 42 into 40 plus 2. And I know 40 hundredths is the same as 4/10. So I have 4/10 plus 2 hundredths. So on our place value chart, we can say 4/10 and 2 hundredths. So 42 hundredths is equivalent to 42 hundredths. Okay, they want us to put it on a place value chart. I'm going to actually write in pen because it's going to be too hard in my green marker, but I want you to still write with me. Okay, so what do we know? This has been partitioned into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 parts, so tenths. So this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, and 9 tenths. And 1 tenth is equal to 10 hundredths. And 2 tenths is equal to 20 hundredths. And 3 tenths is equal to 30 hundredths. And we could keep going the whole way. Okay, so where would we put 42 hundredths? Well, if this is 42 hundredths, you have 4 tenths, but you don't have 5 tenths. So you have more than 4 tenths, but less than 5 tenths. And you have more than 40 hundredths, but not 50 hundredths. So I think it's going to be somewhere about here, maybe. Maybe right about there would be 42 hundredths, we could say. That's where that's going to go, right about there. Okay, remember you can always pause the video if you need to get caught up with your writing. Okay, let's look at our next one. Our next one, they've already decomposed it for us. They've already said 6 tenths and 7 hundredths. But let's put it back together. Let's say 6 tenths is the same as 60 hundredths plus 7 hundredths equals 67 hundredths. And what do we have here? 67 hundredths, the exact same. Okay, so here's the fraction form and the decimal form, and they're both equivalent. Okay, so let's put it on our number line. Again, I'm going to write in pen, but I want you to write with me. So that's 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, and 9 tenths. Or it's 10 hundredths, 20 hundredths. Now, that would only be if we had divided these up smaller, but we don't need to. We're just writing what's equivalent. 40 hundredths, 50 hundredths, because these are equivalent. 70 hundredths, 80 hundredths, and 90 hundredths. Now that would mean we'd have to do all these little dashes and divide them up, but I'm just going to say they're equivalent. So where would 67 hundredths go? It's going to be between 60 and 70, and it's going to be a little closer to 70. So maybe right about there, we could say, would be where 67 hundredths would go. Okay, friends, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.